My name is Jessica, I'm 32 years old, and up until recently, I thought I had a pretty solid relationship with my parents. I never expected anything major to come out of the blue, especially not the shocking revelation that completely flipped my world upside down. For most of my life, I've been taught that family always came first. It wasn't just something they said, it was a rule we lived by. My parents drilled it into me, and to be honest, I had taken it to heart. It wasn't just about the big moments, either holidays, birthdays, those were all expected. But it was also about the little stuff. If my parents needed help with something, I'd be there. When they'd gone through financial struggles, I stepped up. I did what I could to be the good daughter, the one who always put family above everything else. And because of this, I thought that when it came time for major decisions like the will or future care, I'd be included. I was wrong. It all started when I came home one evening after work. I had been feeling unusually exhausted lately, trying to juggle work, keeping up with friends, and managing a bunch of household stuff. So when I got an email from my mom asking to talk, I didn't think much of it. The subject line was simple, important talk. The message, however, was anything but. She basically asked me to come over the next day to discuss some family matters. So, of course, I called her up to see what was going on. "Hey, what's up? Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to hide the growing knot in my stomach. She hesitated for a second. "Yeah, everything's fine. Just come over tomorrow." I agreed, but I was curious, and that little feeling of unease was starting to gnaw at me. The next day, I showed up at my parents' house around noon, as agreed. My mom greeted me with her usual warm smile, but there was a stiffness about her that I couldn't quite place. My dad was there, too, sitting on the couch, but he didn't say much, which was unusual for him. We sat down at the kitchen table, and the tension in the air was almost palpable. After a few moments of awkward silence, my mom finally spoke. "We need to talk about something important, Jess," she said, her voice a little too calm, like she was preparing me for bad news. "Okay, what is it?" She sighed deeply, glancing at my dad before looking back at me. "We've updated our will. And, well, we've made some decisions." Now, I don't know why, but at that moment, my heart began to race. Something didn't feel right. I tried to remain calm, but I couldn't help the worry creeping up my spine. "What do you mean? Is everything okay?" "We're just doing what's best," my mom said, her voice becoming more serious. "We've decided to leave everything to your brother, Daniel." I felt the air in the room freeze. "Wait, what? What do you mean everything?" "You're leaving everything to Daniel." She nodded, her eyes not meeting mine. "Yes, Jess. We've talked about it, and we think it's the right decision. We're leaving him everything, house, savings, everything we've worked for." My mind started to swirl. I could barely process the words. But I thought family came first? I thought I was supposed to be a part of this, too. Mom shook her head. "You know, Jess, we've always tried to do our best for you. But Daniel has been more reliable in recent years. He's been there for us more, and well, we just think it's time to focus on him." I felt my hands start to shake. "More reliable? Are you kidding me? I've been helping you with bills, groceries, all sorts of things for years. I've been there for you when you needed it. And Daniel? What has he done? I don't get it." My dad finally spoke up, his voice quieter than usual. "Jess, we're just trying to be practical. Daniel is the one who's going to be taking care of things. He's got the time, the resources. We just think it makes sense." "But this doesn't make sense," I said, my voice rising despite my attempts to stay calm. "I've always been there for you. You can't just cut me out like this." There was a long pause, and I could feel the weight of their silence. The look on my mom's face was almost apologetic, but it wasn't enough to make me feel any better. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor, and I felt my breath quicken. "I don't know what's going on with you two, but this is not how family works." As I turned to leave, I heard my dad's voice. "Jess, just think about it." But I didn't want to think about it. I was furious. My head was spinning, and I didn't know what to do with all the emotions swirling inside me. How could they do this to me? How could they just turn their backs after everything I'd done? For the next few weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I kept thinking about the will, about how they just handed everything to Daniel, and about how they seemed so nonchalant about it. It felt like betrayal. And that's when I decided to make a move. It wasn't about revenge at first. It was about standing up for myself, about showing them that I wasn't going to let them treat me like this. I'd been paying for some of their bills, helping them out with utilities, and I wasn't going to keep doing it if they were going to leave me out of everything. So, I stopped. I stopped paying their bills. I figured if they didn't care about me anymore, then why should I care about keeping the lights on for them? A month passed. I hadn't heard much from them, just the occasional text asking how I was doing, but nothing that felt personal. Nothing that made me feel like they regretted their decision. Then, one afternoon, I got a text from my mom. "Why is the electricity off?" My heart raced. The moment I read that message, I felt a rush of vindication mixed with guilt. It had worked. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the cold pit in my stomach. Was this what I wanted? To make them feel the way I felt? To watch them struggle? I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I stared at the message for a long time, the words blinking at me, demanding an answer. Finally, I tapped out a simple reply. "I thought you had everything covered with Daniel. Maybe you should ask him about it." And then, I put my phone down, letting the silence hang between us. I had no idea what would happen next, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of power I hadn't had in weeks. The next few days passed slowly, each one dragging as I waited for the fallout. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head, wondering if I had done the right thing. A part of me wanted to feel bad, wanted to call them and apologize, or at least explain myself better. But then I'd think about everything they'd said, about how they had decided to exclude me without a second thought, and I'd feel a surge of anger again. The truth was, I was hurt. I was angry. And more than anything, I was done being the one who always had to put everyone else first. The silence was deafening. A few days later, I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, when I got another message from my mom. This time, it was a bit longer. "Jessica, this has gone too far. We need to talk. I don't understand why you're punishing us like this. We're your family. You shouldn't be acting like this." I didn't even hesitate. My fingers hovered over the screen as I typed a quick reply. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you cut me out of everything. I'm not the one who needs to explain myself." I set my phone down, the weight of what I'd just written sinking in. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't back down now. There was no turning back. Not after everything. Another few days went by. I couldn't help but notice that my phone was eerily quiet. No more texts, no phone calls, no pressure to fix things. It was like they'd given up. But still, I kept waiting. I knew something had to give. They couldn't just let me walk away without trying to fix it. Could they? Then, on a Thursday evening, my phone rang. I didn't even have to look at the screen to know who it was. It was my mom's name, flashing across the display. My heart thudded in my chest, but I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello. Jessica," my mom started, her voice quiet. "I don't know what you want from us, but we're your parents. We've always tried to do what's best for you, even if it's not what you wanted to hear." I could hear her voice tremble, and something inside me softened. But I quickly pushed the feeling aside. This was the same woman who had said I wasn't reliable enough to inherit anything from them. I wasn't going to let myself get manipulated again. "I don't want anything from you, Mom. You made your choice, and so did I. You've made it clear where I stand, so don't expect me to keep cleaning up the mess." Her silence on the other end of the line was almost worse than anything she could have said. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "Please, just come over. We need to talk about this in person." I could feel the weight of the conversation pressing in on me. The temptation to give in, to go back and try to fix things, was overwhelming. But I couldn't do it. Not when I was still so angry. Not when everything felt like a lie. "I'll think about it," I said, before quickly hanging up. The conversation left me reeling, but I couldn't let it change my mind. I was tired of being the only one who cared. It was their turn to show up. The next day, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my mom. This time one that made my heart drop. I spoke to Daniel. He's upset too. He said he didn't ask for all of this. He's just following what we told him. I stared at the message for what felt like hours. Daniel? Upset? Was this really happening? My brother and I weren't close. We hadn't been for years. He'd always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. But now, after everything, he was suddenly upset? I didn't know what to think. Was he really upset? Or was this just another attempt to get me to cave? I couldn't tell. I tossed my phone aside, feeling more lost than I had in weeks. My mind was spinning, trying to figure out if there was any truth in what my mom had said. Daniel upset? I couldn't even picture it. Later that afternoon, I decided to take a walk. I needed some space to clear my head. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows on the sidewalk, but I didn't feel the warmth of it. My thoughts were cold, swirling around like a storm I couldn't outrun. It was then that I got another text. This time, it wasn't from my mom. It was from Daniel. "Jess, can we talk?" I paused mid-step, the phone buzzing in my hand like it had some kind of gravitational pull on me. My heart started racing again, but I didn't know why. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to let the silence continue. But another part of me wondered if this was the breakthrough I'd been waiting for. Maybe Daniel really was upset, and maybe he didn't agree with everything Mom and Dad had done. So, against my better judgment, I tapped out a quick response. "What do you want to talk about?" The reply came almost instantly. "I don't want to fight anymore. Can we meet up and figure this out?" My finger hovered over the screen, uncertainty flooding me. Could I trust him? Could I really sit down with him and have an honest conversation without it turning into another mess? I started walking again, the steady rhythm of my steps giving me a sense of control. I stared at the phone in my hand. It felt like I was on the edge of something, about to make a choice that could change everything. But then another message popped up. "It's not just about the will, Jess. It's about everything. I think you've been treated unfairly too, and I'm sorry." That was it. The words I've been waiting for. But now, everything felt even more complicated than before. I didn't know what to do. Should I meet him? Should I trust him? Could this really be the turning point? Or was I just setting myself up for more disappointment? I stood there, staring at the message, my mind racing. The world felt like it was on the verge of something big. But I had no idea how it was going to play out. I stood there, phone in hand, the weight of Daniel's message pressing down on me. I felt a flood of emotions. But at the core of it all was the undeniable urge to finally have my say, to take control back. I stared at the text for another few seconds before replying, trying to sound calm, despite the storm raging inside me. "Fine. We'll meet," I typed back. "But I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for me." Within minutes, Daniel sent back a time and place. A small cafe we used to go to together when we were younger. It wasn't far from my apartment, but I didn't feel the nostalgia I expected. Instead, I felt a tinge of dread. What if this was another trap? What if he just wanted to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself? But I pushed those thoughts away. This wasn't about guilt. This was about setting things right, about taking the power back. I wasn't going to let anyone manipulate me anymore. I arrived at the cafe early, trying to steady my nerves. The place was quiet, the late afternoon sun casting warm light through the windows. I took a seat at the corner table, tapping my fingers nervously on the surface. The minutes dragged on, but I didn't reach for my phone. I wasn't going to check the time every 5 seconds. I was in control now, not them. Finally, Daniel walked in. He looked different, softer somehow. Not the cocky, golden child I'd always known, but someone who seemed broken. I could see the tiredness in his eyes, the tightness in his posture. He wasn't the enemy anymore. He was just another person caught in the mess. I gestured for him to sit, and he did, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "Jess," he started, his voice lower than usual. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten. I didn't see it until now." I nodded, but my thoughts were racing. This was the moment. I had to hold my ground, not let my guard down. "You didn't realize? Or you just didn't care?" I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You've always been the golden boy. The one who never had to fight for anything. While I was the one cleaning up after everyone. Always second place." His face flushed, guilt washing over him. "That's not how I saw it, Jess. But I see now. You were right to be upset. They took you for granted, and I didn't do anything to stop it." I stared at him for a long moment, trying to assess whether he was being genuine. His apology seemed sincere, but it didn't change everything that had happened. It didn't undo the hurt. "You're right. You didn't do anything to stop it. Neither did Mom. Neither did Dad." I paused, locking eyes with him. "But you know what? I'm done. Done being the one who always sacrifices. Done being the one who cleans up the mess. I'm taking control now." Daniel looked at me, confusion creeping into his expression. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, then dropped the bomb. "I've already started. The bills? I'm done paying them. I haven't made a single payment since I found out about the will. No more electricity, no more water, no more gas. If they want their comfort, they'll have to deal with it themselves for once." His eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, you can't be serious. They'll what? Get mad? They already have. But this time, it's not my problem anymore. I've had enough of being treated like an afterthought. If they want me to help, they can show me some respect first. If they don't, well, they can handle their own mess. Daniel sat back in his chair, looking stunned. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this, I replied, the finality in my voice leaving no room for doubt. And you're welcome to join me, Daniel. If you want to stay in their good graces, that's your choice. But I'm done playing the role of the dutiful daughter. They don't get to push me around anymore. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of my words hung in the air, thick with tension. Finally, Daniel broke the silence, his voice softer. I don't know if I can do that, Jess. I'm still trying to figure out where I stand in all of this. I nodded, understanding. I get it. But you need to know something. This isn't just about the money. It's about standing up for what's right. About having a backbone. You've spent your whole life letting them control the narrative. It's time to change that. He looked down at his hands, unsure of what to say. I could tell he was struggling with everything I'd just said. But it didn't matter. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. I stood up from the table, feeling a rush of confidence flood through me. I've made my choice, Daniel. You need to make yours. I'm not coming back to clean up the mess this time. With that, I turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Daniel sitting there, lost in thought. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had done it. I had taken control of my own life. Finally. No more guilt. No more manipulation. It felt good. It felt right. As I walked home, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom. Jessica, why is the electricity off? What's going on? You need to fix this. We're your parents. We can't live like this. I read the message and felt a smile tug at the corner of my lips. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I turned off my phone and slipped it into my pocket. I was done. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I could feel the tension build with every call, every text, every passive-aggressive comment from my parents. But I didn't budge. I stuck to my guns. They tried everything, from guilt trips to trying to bribe me back with promises of things I'd always wanted, things I didn't even care about anymore. One evening, a week after my conversation with Daniel, I got the text I was waiting for. It wasn't from Daniel this time. It was from my mom again, the tone even more frantic. Jessica, we need to talk. We can't go on like this. Your father and I are going to lose the house if you don't help. Please. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. My heart pounded in my chest. I took a deep breath, but this time, I wasn't going to let their manipulation work. Not again. I picked up my phone and typed the simplest, coldest response I could muster. I'm sorry you're in this situation, but I'm not going to be your safety net anymore. You've had plenty of chances to change, and you didn't. I'm done. I paused before sending the message, but in the end, I knew it was the right choice. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a second longer, but the finality of my decision settled in. I hit send. The phone didn't buzz again for a while. The next day, I found out that my parents had called Daniel, begging him to step in, to get me to help. He didn't, of course, not this time. He was the first to text me afterward. Hey, I think you did the right thing. But it's hard. I feel like we're all losing something. I didn't know how to respond to that. What I did know was that I wasn't losing anything that I hadn't already lost long ago. The difference was, now I had control of the situation. Now I wasn't the one always cleaning up the mess. A week later, I got a call from my mom again. This time, it was more desperate. The bills hadn't been paid. The power had been shut off for several days, and my parents were really starting to feel the weight of their mistakes. But instead of apologizing, instead of acknowledging how badly they'd treated me, they still tried to guilt trip me, to twist things to make me feel responsible. But I stayed firm. I didn't offer to help, and I didn't apologize for my choices. You can handle this on your own. You'll figure it out. Just like I had to figure things out, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a long silence on the other end before she finally responded, her voice thick with frustration. I don't understand you anymore, Jessica. I let out a breath, relief flooding through me. That was the moment when I realized that this entire situation was never about me making them understand. It was about me finally understanding myself and taking my own life back. A week later, the electricity was still off, and I was okay with that. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't feel the need to prove anything. I was free. For the first time in years, I could live my life without the constant pull of their demands, without feeling like I had to sacrifice my happiness for theirs. I'm not sure what happened next with my parents. I imagine they found a way to scramble and pay their bills, just like they always did when the pressure was on. But the difference was, I wasn't part of their plan anymore. And that was something I could live with. So here we are. I don't regret a single moment of it. It was hard, and at times, it felt like I was doing something wrong, but it was the best decision I ever made. It was my life, my choices, and my future on the line. And for once, I chose myself. So, Reddit, what do you think? Did I take it too far? Or was it about time I stopped being everyone's doormat? Let me know your thoughts.